welcome to part 3, and I hope the final part. So what are we going to do? Well, we have to control the ailerons, so we're going to put our servos in. I'll put a little wood in there just to straighten it up just for now. I'm not going to glue these in just yet, and I highly advise you don't. These actually get glued in once they go through the fuselage, because to get the wing through the fuselage you have to take all of this off. Right, okay, you're getting the picture. But we can do one half at least, so that that part of the wing can go through and we can do all the bits and bobs without actually gluing anything in. Now, what are we going to do? Well, first thing you've got to do is get your servo horn, which comes with the servo, and there's the servo horn there. You will get a little tiny screw. I hope you can see that. Now, it's very important you don't lose that screw, because if you lose that screw, well, basically you're up a creek without a paddle. But never mind. So you put your control horn on, okay? Then you get your other control horn for the opposite end. Now, these are wooden. I like these because I like them, and that's it. That's all there is to it. There's nothing particularly special about them. Normally they will come in a plastic pack which will look something similar to that. That's probably what you're going to use. And these come minus the screws, by the way, which is why I like using these. Okay, so where do we begin? You line up your servo so the arm lines up with the mark on the aileron. So you get a ruler and you get the servo straight, and then you'll see that it lines up. So to get the servo straight, I'll take this bit of wood that I've taken off the lollipop stick, stick it in there, and that now lines up. Okay, now you can glue this in now if you want, but only do one wing. Okay, so you mark up where the control horn is going to go. Now, it's very important that this end here goes as close to that hinge as possible, because that will give you maximum throw, what we call throw. Don't put it back here, you're wasting your time. Don't put it in the middle. Make sure that control horn is as close to that hinge as you can physically get it. Okay, now we're going to support the aileron with this screwdriver just so it lines up level. And then what we do, this end here is called a clevis. You get your clevis. This is a metal one. I choose a metal one because I find it easy to use. Then you have a threaded rod. You can probably just see the thread on the end of that rod, and this rotates in here, right? Put the thread it through about halfway up the clevis. Okay? The reason is that you have adjustment this way and you have adjustment that way without running out of adjustment. That's what the thread's for. It's not just to hold it on, so you can adjust it. Next thing you do. Now, this is the tricky bit, because these actually are a bit stiff, but they're designed to be so they don't come out the control horn. Open up the clevis, put it in one of the holes, usually the top one. There we go. There we go. So now that's attached. Okay, see that's attached. I put my screwdriver under there just to level things out. Level as I can that edge there. Now I get my Sharpie pen. I line up the hole best I can, and I mark where that hole is on the rod. There you go. And I just doubly enforce that that's marked up properly. The reason being, I'm going to take this out again. So you force the arms of the clevis apart, and hopefully, yes, it comes out. So that's where we want the bend to be. We've got to bend that. Now, you can bend it using pin nose pliers. I have a proper tool for the job. These cost, I think, about £12. I line up the mark against the jaw, clamp it, and then I will make sure it's nice and level with my eye, like so, and I squeeze. There you go. And what we get is a nice Z bend. Now before I cut this, I'm going to double check it. Yeah, it's about the right place. So if it's slightly out, it doesn't matter because we have adjustment on this end here. So I'm going to grab pliers, slightly straighten that out, grab my side cutters and cut off about 10mm. Yeah, making sure it doesn't fly off into your eye. So we can now pop that through that hole there till it looks like that. And then we can open up the clevis and pop that in. It's always a bit fiddly. There you go. So what you have, because I've not glued this in yet, so what you have is that. Can you see? I hope you can. Yeah. So now, if I wish to, I can glue that in. Okay. I'm not going to glue the servo, but I can glue that. Now, let's see. Now, what we can do, we can also check the movement of the servo. You can buy one of these servo testers. It costs £3. I actually have two. The reason I have two is because I thought this one stopped working. So I bought another one and it turned out it was working again. So service test. Now, for as long as that doesn't pop out, you'll see this aileron moving. So, and I've not rehearsed this, by the way. So let's pop this in. I have a battery here. It's 2,300 milliamp hour, 4.8 volts overlander battery, and it's a NiCad. It's a NiCad. So if you charge this up, make sure you put your charger onto NiCad and not LiPo, because you'll have a bad experience. It's just a normal servo plug lead there. Okay, you'll see on here that there's 3 connections there and 1 connection there. Well, obviously the 1 connection is for the battery. It does show a positive and a negative, and obviously red is positive, so we know which way round it goes on, and you'll see it light up. You plug the other end of the servo lead into there with the metal part showing up. Okay, just plug that in. There you go. And there's a little select button there which you go through little phases. So here we go. Oh, look at that, it's pulled it apart. But at least your servo is working. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to glue that into there, okay, and then we'll see that working. Okay, so give me a minute. Okay, so I've glued this in. I put some sellotape over the servo just to keep it in place, and I have done some adjustments to the clevis, and the horn there is upright. So I'm now going to plug this in, okay, making sure I've got the polarity right. There you go. Now if I turn this knob here, this is a manual setting, you'll see that that will now move. And that's how far you can take it. You can see that there's quite a bit of movement there. I'll just try and get the angle correct for you. That is a lot of movement. You won't need all that movement. So I think we'll gauge that as a success. Now, when you have put this wing through the fuselage and you've got it in the right position and everything else, then you can start thinking about gluing this servo in. You can just use normal Sino, normal super glue. I wouldn't go gluing it so it will never come out. It will stay in place. You just need to glue it good enough. So a little bit down this side here, maybe the top there and the top there. Don't go anywhere near that horn because you'll end up super gluing the horn and it won't move. All right, but before you super glue anything in, make sure the final thing you do is put that little screw in there. Stops this horn coming out, which does happen if you don't put the screw in. Okay, and then this will just go in as normal. And when you've got everything set up as you need it to do, you then manually adjust this. Okay, let's bring this back slightly. There you go. You manually adjust the clevis using the thread until that trailing edge lines up with that edge there, and the same this side. Don't worry too much about the wingtip side too much. Okay, you've got your centre of gravity marked out at 38mm from the leading edge. Okay, and when you're ready to do a test flight, okay, and if you've got a motor on this thing, don't turn the motor on. Just hand throw it. Hand throw it, observe what it does, make it land, adjust your clevises, whether it's for the ailerons or the elevator, throw it again and just make adjustments until you're happy that that little glider will go in a straight line without you having to really do much of anything. Okay, and when you are happy with that, then you can try your maiden flight. We say a maiden flight, it's the first flight. So you put your throttle on, and I advise you to put about half a throttle on and just hand launch it into wind, and once it's flying and you're happy that it's flying, then you can control the trim on your radio. If you have to use excessive trim or you run out of trim on the radio, land it and then manually adjust the clevises and then do another test flight. Obviously you've got to put your trim on the radio back to centre, but give it another test flight and then trim it out until such times as you haven't run out of trim. Okay, now these throwing test flights also include checking your centre of gravity, because obviously you might need to move it a little bit to the back or a little bit to the front. Okay, but what you don't want a heavy tail. You don't want the tail bringing the nose up. If anything, you want to be slightly nose down. Okay, because if it's slightly nose down, you're penetrating the air. And remember, the airflow over the wing gives you control. So if you're tail heavy, you haven't got enough airflow going over the wing, therefore you have less control. So the more air, or the faster the air goes over the wing, the more control you have. So you can't go too slow. You know, you can go slow with these, but you don't want to be going too slow and stalling with the tail being heavy, because if it stalls, it'll just do that. And if you're high enough, it'll do that, and then it'll do that. And we call this porpoising, like a dolphin. And if your model is doing this, it's because you're slightly too tail heavy. So you need to put some weight into the front, or move your battery forward in the nose to make the nose more heavy, and then it'll naturally want to go down. Going down is good, yeah. Going up is not so good. You'll very rarely get a model that will just go in a straight line, and it takes a lot of practice and adjusting to do that. So just to re-emphasize, just glue in place one side of the wing before you put it into the model, because if you glue everything into the place and then you come to put this through the fuselage, you're going to suddenly realise you've got to unglue everything because you can't get the wing through. So just pick one side and secure it, then it's that part's done. Then put the wing in, and then do the other side while the fuselage is on. And if you make sure that you know everything's in the right place, you can cut everything ready and then put everything on and then glue it. But don't forget to put your little screw in before you put the servo in and glue it. And don't forget, don't glue the horn end, because you're going to glue it and it won't move. Okay, now I hope that's been instructive. If you have some questions, please send them. I will do my best to answer them as quickly as I can. And I really hope you enjoyed doing this, and you'll see also that all those marks, those pen marks I put on, you're not going to see them now because all the gear's in place. And all you'll see, which this is in, is where the centre of gravity is. So you now know where the centre of gravity is when you put it in the fuselage. Okay, so look, enjoy your flying. Okay, don't get disheartened if it doesn't work first go. Keep at it, it will fly, and it will fly really, really well, I promise you. All you got to do is just have a little bit of patience, and it will fly, and it will fly great, and you'll really enjoy it. Okay, so happy flying, and give us a thumbs up. Okay, thanks a lot for watching, very much appreciate it. Okay, Baron Flights, bye bye.
That's all, folks.